the next speaker, who I think has stolen a time turner from Harry Potter because he does so many things. He's a Microsoft MVP, a GitHub star, a full stack developer, a DevRel, a YouTuber, and also a fancy cocktail expert. Please, let me introduce Leonardo Montini. I forgot to mention, he's also an open source maintainer.
Also, yeah.
How many hours in the day you got? So you live in a 36-hour shift?
Yeah. That's the only way to be really active in the open source, like having more than 24 hours during the day. So I'm used to that.
So, last round of applause, and I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you. So, let me introduce you to a little story. Everything started because I wanted to write a session with this title. Really, that's where everything has begun. I wanted to call it Learning Web Development for Open Source, and there's a reason beyond that. And the story is inspired a little bit about my career. That's why web development. But then I said, it's not exactly just about me, so I put web in brackets. And the more I was thinking about it, I was trying to picture in my mind how I wanted to deliver this session. I said, well, learning is actually the key, but not learning in a conventional way, not by reading books, not by watching courses, but learning by helping other people. And that's an unconventional way, but trust me, it works. The thing is, I realized during my career that the more you help others, the more you get. But it's not that easy. There's a tiny catch, and the more you help others, the more you get, only if you don't expect anything in return. That's the only way to make sure that this rule actually works. But trust me, this rule works. And that's why today's session is going to be split into two different sections. The first one is pretty much a few practical examples of how I was just trying to be helpful. I didn't have any second goal, but this actually shaped my life and made me the person I am today. And the second part of the session will be mostly about you, how you can apply that same rule of trying to be helpful. And you're going to notice that into the open source ecosystem, by how it is designed, being helpful is so obvious, so natural. And to do that, we're going to do a little time travel, and we're going to begin in 2007. At the time, I was really active into forum free and forum community. Just out of curiosity, does anyone know what is this about? Oh yeah, a few hands, awesome. So, I really loved forums. And just for the one who don't know what I'm talking about, that's a network where you could create an account and then be active into a lot of forums. And obviously, with that exact same account, you was able to create your own forum. So I started with a question. Can I help? I was really active, really involved in those kind of forums. And this is basically the scenario. I was 12 years old. I was having fun creating graphics for those forums, making friends, talking about Pokemons. And all forums, pretty much all forums, had this thing on the top. That's a board with some links, some important news. But there's a thing that makes this board special. Well, it is special now to me. And it's an HTML table. So what's special in an HTML table? Well, I just learned, kind of, web development because I was just trying to help into making the graphics for this forum. So yeah, making graphics for a Pokemon forum made me see what HTML was, mostly links and images and nothing else. The second story is on 2016. Now we're going to talk about gaming. Yeah. And, well, not a super exciting game, but the slide is, it's Grepolis, the browser game set in the ancient Greece. But I don't care about the game, that's not special. The thing is, I also was the most active user answering questions to the players. And why is this relevant? It's no longer forum free on forum community. But the thing is, I tried my best every single time I could to help the other players to find the answer to their questions by looking to the wiki, by trying to do that thing in the game so that I could give them the best and more accurate answer I could give them. And this obviously gave me a huge game advantage. I literally know everything about the game. But also, at some point, while I was answering questions to the player, I got an email. And the email was from Games. And they offered me a community management position because it was kind of helpful to the player. Now, this is me visiting the offices in Hamburg, Germany. And by the way, if you watch me on YouTube, I've got a model of that exact same statue on the background. Anyway, since I was there, that's a software house, they're making games, and I'm a software engineering student, so I was at the time, I was just telling the developers, just so you know, I like community management, but maybe game development. And that's exactly what happened a few years later. Long story short, I was answering questions, helping the players, and a few years later, I got a game development job. Completely unexpected, but it just happened. Moving on, 2021. As I said, I like to answer questions. I am now a developer, so answering questions, development, the answer is obviously Stack Overflow. Yeah, I had my face on Stack Overflow. But I'll be honest, it was mostly for the gamification. I like all the points, scoring and stuff, and that was really fun to me. But the thing is, at that point, I started recognizing a pattern. So the more I was helpful to the people, the more I was getting, even if that wasn't the goal. So if you move on to 2024, that's where open source comes in. I got another email from Corbin, and I got invited to be a maintainer in the Tanstack organization. Just let me spend a minute to talk about Tanstack for those of you who don't know what it is. Basically, we're doing libraries, mostly for the front-end ecosystem, that have some characteristics in common. First of all, they're all written in TypeScript. So everything is type safe. You don't have to write types. You pass the object you have to pass, and then everything is fully inferred. They're headless, which means even though they're libraries for the front end, we do not give you the UI. We give you the logic so that you can bring your own UI and they work with whatever UI tool, library, thing you want to use. And since the core is in TypeScript, by itself is also framework agnostic, which means those libraries do not work on one framework. The core is in TypeScript, we write a tiny adapter on top, and the libraries works on kind of all possible JavaScript frameworks. Just to name a few, if you're into the React ecosystem, you probably know React Query, that is rebranded as Tanstack React Query. But we also have Tanstack Start, that is an actual framework for React, but since it has a framework agnostic core, now also works on Solid. And there are many other libraries. I want to mention one in particular. It is Tanstack Farm. Yahoo! We released Tanstack Farm version 1, like 3 weeks ago. So if you want to try a new experience building forms, not in React, but in React, Vue, Angular, Solid, and Lit, I think. Well, there's also the list over there. And yeah, just you may want to give it a try. Moving on. Why did they pick me as a maintainer? I'm not special. Pretty much like everyone, I just started with writing documentation, trying to fix some little bugs, adding some features. The usual way we always recommend people to get started to open source. But apart from that, I was also trying to be helpful to people, because that's something I like to do and something that it's always rewarding me every single time. But this time, well, I had to do that on Discord. That's the closest thing I can find now to forums. Forums are unfortunately a thing of the past, but so we have Discord. It is what it is. But try to help people, especially in the development world, give me a lot of immediate benefits. See, when someone has a problem and they ask a question, the first thing you get is that you immediately kind of steal their knowledge and learn what other usages are possible about a technology or a library. And then if you try to understand what they're doing, you also learn a new approach. If you try to see, okay, they did this because they wanted that, and you can take that approach and take it for you. And also, you learn new solutions. If you help that developer finding a solution for their problem, now you also know that solution. Which means if not today, not tomorrow, but 3 years' time, you have a similar problem, well, you might already know the solution. You're a step ahead. And offering support, well, you're actually helping people. That should be what all the thing is about. You should help people. The thing is, there are so many ways you can help people and contribute to project. We always talk about the most common, but there are a few more. Like doing triage issues. This, as a maintainer, is really important. And if you're a maintainer, it's kind of easy because you have a lot of context, even though it's time-consuming. If you're not a maintainer, nothing stops you from answering on new issues, telling who created that maybe it is a duplicate and there's another issue about the same thing. Maybe there's already a pull request open, so they don't need a new issue, or maybe they need more clarity, you can ask a question, making the life of maintainers way easier. Speaking of making the life of maintainer easier, reproduce bugs. That is slightly different than reporting bugs. A simple example, in Tanstack, we do libraries for the front end. They run on JavaScript. Something that helps a lot as maintainers is having a stack blitz link or code sandbox or a snippet of code that exactly reproduces that issue. So if someone reports a bug without the live reproduction, just add a comment and add the link with the reproduction. This also saves maintainers a lot of time. Another one outside of GitHub is writing tutorials, articles, and technical content. The thing is, when you're trying to learn something new, a new library, a new language, you hope that there's some kind of guidance. And on the other side, if you know how to use a library, how to do something with a language, be that guy writing a tutorial or a technical content. This also helps a lot open source libraries, as you're helping people getting onboarded, you're raising awareness to the project. And if you don't want to do step-by-step instructions on how to do something, just share that piece of code. Hit publish, and make sure that your work, if there's not a reason to keep it private, is available for everyone, for the same reason. When you're trying to do something, you hope that there's some examples online to take and use. So just share that. And these were just a few, let's say, unconventional examples. So you can just pick one or more, or do whatever you like, and find your own spot in the community. There's not just one thing you have to do to participate in open source. You can just do whatever you find that is helpful. And also, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Oh, I see all those maintainers, they're so smart. I will never reach their level. Who cares? That's not the goal. Just do whatever you can, whatever you feel doing, whatever you feel comfortable doing, and you're going to have an impact in the community, a positive impact if you're not doing anything against the law or something like that. And something I like to do is making YouTube videos. And yeah, that's where the learning web development for open source comes from. It's in my banner since a couple of years now, so I wanted to create a session on that. And tutorials is the kind of content I bring the most on my channel. And here's the reason. Recording a tutorial is one of my favorite motivations to dig deeper into a topic. Sometimes you have a problem, you may spend an entire day to fix it and think, okay, I want to dig deeper and better understand what is going on so that it doesn't happen again. Creating a tutorial has pretty much the same thought process to me. In order to be able to explain maybe something that is complicated in a simple way to make it easy for others to understand, well, that is my motivation of understanding even better that particular topic or library or whatever it is. And as I said, talking about open source libraries also helps raising awareness and definitely counts as contributing to a library, even though you don't get the green square on GitHub. I really, really loved the idea that my videos could help someone. As I say, being helpful is always the best thing to do. And in particular, before starting talking about open source libraries, I was just trying to learn a little thing and try to share it so that other people having the same problem had an easy solution. And I'm really proud that, okay, I'm not a super famous YouTuber, but my silly video about resolving a merge conflict in VS Code with the built-in tools, the three-way merge, well, I got 100,000 views. So I want to believe that I helped someone. I hope so. And for sure, creating content or tutorials or helping people is helping the community, but also helps myself. As I said, every time I try to help other people, I realize that I'm also getting something back. But the thing is, I'm doing this alone. There's nothing wrong in that, and you can create tutorials with other people, you can collaborate with other people, but the range of people you can get is kind of small doing this activity, as it takes time to write something in a detailed way. So this served me as a transition to say, what about a collaborative activity where we're learning together using open source as a medium? And this is kind of an idea that is in my mind. And we're going to get there. But first, a few questions so that you can raise your hands. I want to see if you're sleeping or if you're awake. First of all, how many of you have ever created a playground project, a side project, something to a POC? I expect to see all hands up. If you're all developers, you're doing that. Okay, thank you. You're still awake. Next question. How many of you have also hit the publish button? Okay, all of you pretty much. And now that's the third question. How many of you have contributors on those projects? Like 8 hands. Why not? What's the problem? Well, it's not a problem. Sometimes you might don't care. It was a throwaway project, you just wanted to experiment one feature, you just wanted to see if that thing was possible. Who cares about having other people playing around in your project? But why? Why would you want other developers in your learning playground? Well, that's an easy question, and I've got a few answers. First of all, you're not alone on this journey. There's no reason why you should try to learn something by yourself. I mean, sure, sometimes you can do that, but doing that together unlocks a lot of possibilities. For example, you can practice collaboration. And this is a really important aspect that you take from open source. By being a team player on open source, you get a lot. Just let me make a simple example. It's easy to be, sometimes, it's easy to be collaborative and be a team player with people physically sitting next to you in your office. Not always easy, but should be easier. Then with full remote, we managed to also be able to collaborate with colleagues, but spread across Italy, spread across the world, but still they're colleagues. In open source, you happen to collaborate with people you never met You have no idea who they are. They might have a different language, different time zone, a different cultural background. And sometimes it might not be that easy to collaborate with people having a mind completely different than yours. And that's the added value. If you get a good team player in open source, when you get back to work, you're way better than usual. Another reason why you might want to have other people in your learning background is to exchange ideas. You might want to study some aspects of a language, of a library. Someone else might want to focus on other aspects. You can merge that together and learn even more together. And also, this helps remaining motivated. You know, side projects usually fail because you just start following the next shiny thing. You get bored, you no longer care about that thing. But it's a shame. Sometimes, maybe you had a good idea. Why abandon it for no reason? And if there's someone else playing with you, learning with you, this might help remaining motivated. And, well, things might get serious. That side project that started to learn a technology, it was maybe a silly idea, maybe a product that is already existing, but you had some friends, you made some new friends, you started adding features, it even might become the next popular open source libraries. You don't really know. So I really see that as a win-win scenario. There's no loss in that. And I try to give that a name, but it doesn't really matter. I don't even know if there's something similar already existing. And I call that open side project. The idea is pretty much like building public. You know, building public is just sharing what you're doing so that maybe someone might get interested. But with collaboration in the mix, you already know that you want your side project to be a collaborative side project. So here's the idea. Make it easy for anyone to get involved in that side project. And just a few examples. Use the README to explain the project is something you might say, yeah, it's obvious. I know I have to write a README in my project. But as obvious as it may seem, it's not easy to write a proper README, the right size, with the right amount of information so that anyone can start and get on board. Same goes for have a clear setup and contributing instructions. Again, I focus on web development, on front end, so most of the applications, most of the libraries are just you clone the project, run npm install, and bam, it works. But sometimes you might have an environment variable, and you can add that on .m, .example, or whatever. But where does that variable come from? Maybe it's an API key, and in order to get that API key, you have to sign up to another external service. And maybe you have a Docker container to spin and some extra. You should make it easy for everyone to contribute on that, writing instructions. And in your local machine, it works because you just spin up the project. But imagine someone else cloning the project from scratch. It might not be that simple. And with that, also having a high-level plan or a roadmap. Again, this is helpful for everyone who wants to join the project, but also works awesome for you. Like, one of the other reasons why side project often fails is because you just start excited about implementing a feature, about creating a new tiny product, but then you lose motivation because you don't know how to keep growing the project. If you write a roadmap, then it's also for you as a motivation, and also for some other people as, hey, I like that feature you suggested, I want to implement that. Which means get ready to discuss issues and pull requests. Again, it might not be easy sometimes. Really, people with different background might have different ways of asking questions and requests. So in open source, you should get ready to also handle that. And yeah, we're almost there. What I want to be the key takeaways of me rambling for 25 minutes. Number one, help without expecting anything in return. As I mentioned, I realized it worked really well for me. And I think it's something all of you can take home. Just help people for the pure joy of helping people. It's the right thing to do. And you'll also get something back. Get involved in the communities by doing what you like. Again, getting involved in communities is awesome. But sometimes you might hit some barriers. Maybe there are some rules you don't like, some practices you don't agree. Find another community. Find a place where you feel welcomed and where you can do whatever you like doing to help them. That's really important. And there are so many communities out there that you can really find your home where you can have fun, enjoy, and contribute to whatever cause they're pursuing. And the last one, be open to collaboration. Again, you're not alone in this journey. We're all developers here, pretty much. So we're all trying to get better at our job. We're all trying to build good products. We're all trying to make the difference. And there's no reason to do that alone. So this is probably the perfect recipe of learning web development through open source while trying to be helpful and making the world a better place for everyone. Thank you. And that was me. Just in case you're curious, I'm a front-end developer at Clarinet. I've got a YouTube channel, and that is my name. And if you want to connect on LinkedIn, I will really appreciate that. I'm happy to chat on LinkedIn, so there it is.
Do we have some question? Oh, one over there. I'm coming.
What tool did you use for the slides?
United Slides, yes. So the thing is, this wasn't a technical session, and they said I wanted to do something with the slides. And it's just Keynote, Apple Keynote.
I just wanted to thank you so much for sort of bringing up this part of open source. It's a thing at Gadfly that we do. In order for you to come into Gadfly, you have to tell me what your passion project is, and you have to work on it for 3 to 6 months. But one of the things that I think is really key here is whenever you first join, you then have to go look at somebody else's previous passion project, and you have to work on their README and their documentation from scratch, right? And I think one of the things that you sort of pointed to here, since we've all mostly gone remote, there's not so much like paired or peered programming, and that's really an element here where you're helping us and showing us how to do that digitally. Do you have any recommendations, or do you like working or like recording peer sessions, or do you prefer to do it like the polished version?
Good question. Actually, never recorded a session about that, to be honest. But yeah, the thing is, when I launched OpenSite project, the idea I had was to actually also create a platform to make this a thing, a habit for people. Like making a platform where you can meet demand and offer. So people trying to find, not mentors, people trying to find ways of collaboration with other people having the same interest, so that they can find themselves and start doing that consistently on projects. So that's the kind of idea I had. I never really put that into practice, but that's something I would really like to see in the future. So helping people being helpful to other people. That's pretty much the goal.
Someone else? Okay, so from forum 3 to the trophy.
Yes. I wanted the trophy. That's why I'm here. Yes.
The main reason.
Yes.
And this is for you.
Yes!